World leaders are paying tribute to the former South African president who helped his country end apartheid and ultimately transition to democracy. F.W. de Klerk died of cancer today at his home in Cape Town at the age of 85. The country's current president is praising de Klerk for opening the door to full democracy. Cyril Ramaphosa said this: "He took the courageous decision to unban political parties, release political prisoners, and enter into negotiations with the liberation movement." But de Klerk was a deeply divisive figure who benefited from the repressive system that he helped enforce. Archbishop Desmond Tutu Foundation had this to say about the former leader. While de Klerk played a vital role in ending apartheid, he was never able to acknowledge the full extent of apartheid's evil. In a pre-recorded message, here's what de Klerk himself said about his change of heart. Take a listen.
I, without qualification, apologize for the pain and the hurt and the indignity and the damage that apartheid has done to black, brown, and Indians in South Africa.
CNN's David McKenzie takes a look at the complicated legacy of South Africa's last white president.
F.W. de Klerk helped end generations of white minority rule in South Africa.
A new democratic dispensation is foreseen, with full political rights for all South Africans.
But earlier in his career, there was little hint of anything revolutionary. A deeply conservative de Klerk rose through the ranks of the National Party during the most draconian periods of racist apartheid rule. Then, as president on February 2nd, 1990.
The government has taken a firm decision to release Mr. Mandela unconditionally.
We landed in a place which was morally unjustifiable. And I came to the realization I cannot build the security of my people on the basis of injustice towards the majority of all the people.
Some of his people, Afrikaner South Africans, called de Klerk a traitor for releasing Nelson Mandela. But South Africa's painstakingly negotiated democratic transition helped stave what many saw as inevitable civil war.
It was only in South Africa when we negotiated, and when Mandela sat across me and said, "I will try to understand your concerns. You cannot diffuse tension unless the parties to the conflict start talking to each other."
De Klerk would jointly win the Nobel Peace Prize with Mandela, a move criticized by many, and served as deputy president for a time. But the last white president of South Africa once called apartheid a developmental policy, only truly repudiating it after an outcry. Some South Africans felt that he had little moral authority to criticize a democratically elected government, as he frequently did. Over the years, Mandela and de Klerk developed a strong mutual respect, even friendship, a symbol that de Klerk said represented what could be possible in a country with such a painful past.
My next guest is the author of Thabo Mbeki and the Battle for the Soul of the ANC. William Gumede joins me now from Johannesburg. William, good to see you. And I know you heard that last message, that recorded message of a very frail de Klerk apologizing, he says, for the pain, the hurt, and the indignity that was caused by apartheid. For many, that apology should have happened a few decades ago. What do you make of that?
I mean, I got goosebumps when I heard that apology, because, you know, many black South Africans have been urging him to apologize, to acknowledge the hurt of black South Africans. I think that he has done it, you know, at his deathbed. I think it's very important, that acknowledgement, because without that acknowledgement, it has been very difficult to reconcile black and white South Africans, because many black South Africans have been very bitter that their suffering, the terrible things that happened to them during apartheid and colonialism had not been acknowledged officially by de Klerk, the last white president of apartheid South Africa.
William, I know that must be very emotional, and I guess the question is what his death and his legacy symbolize for Black South Africans that lived under his rule at the time, and also his predecessor, P.W. Botha, the atrocities that occurred during apartheid, and then through this transition, then importantly, the born free Black South Africans and what de Klerk symbolizes.
I mean, I think the important thing, de Klerk, one has to acknowledge, when he made that decision to end formal apartheid and to unban all the liberation movements and all the anti-apartheid activists, that really was important, and it did secure his legacy for all time. And it was really important because what he did also, that prevented South Africa plunging into the civil war and the country breaking down. So it was really important. And you have to go back to the context of the late 1980s, South Africa. It was not easy for him, of course, because the white community was also divided. Not many of among the white South Africans were enthusiastic about ending formal apartheid, and he did take a very courageous decision to do that. And of course, before him, previous presidents, apartheid presidents, in their piecemeal way, opened up the space for him to make the decision. He made the decision, and I think he will rank up there, I think, with Mikhail Gorbachev when he ended communist rule. And I think, they would be similarly in history, their legacy secured.
William, could you take me through what your interaction has been, and how many times so many people have asked de Klerk in the past to acknowledge that apartheid was a crime against humanity, and he always pushed back. And we know it was a difficult time, and as you say, here's a white conservative man that had so much pressure from his party, from his ideologies, from the moment that he was born, to try and be the agent of change in a very polarized country.
I mean, I interacted with him a few years ago because I participated in a documentary of his life. And then still, engaged with him about asking, why doesn't he apologize? Because an apology would be very important for Black South Africans. The acknowledgement, it's because an apology for me and for many Black South Africans would be, it's the basic element for reconciliation. And still, and I think it's about 7 or 8 years ago, he was very adamant that that apartheid was not for him a crime against humanity, and that an apology was not necessary. Now, of course, that resistance and stubbornness at the time really was very upsetting for most Black South Africans, and it really was an obstacle for towards long, sustainable and deep reconciliation between Black and white South Africans. And of course, all of that to some extent changes with his apologies just before he died on his deathbed. I think that really will help, to restore the image of many people, and especially the younger generation, the post-1994 generation of Black South Africans, who have been very angry with de Klerk, and who sees, he saw de Klerk, particularly in the light of his unwillingness to apologize and to acknowledge the hurt of apartheid, and who was understandingly angry. I think it will help to ease, and it will help with the healing going forward.
Yeah, William, and pain that still very much exists today, so we know the path is still ahead of us. Thank you very much for your insights. Good to have you on the show.